Hello, sixth graders. It's Mr. Gardell. It's great to be back with you. I hope you're having a superb day. Earlier this week, our focus was on starting and learning about the Ojibwe and what they were doing in each of the four seasons. If you recall, I provided you the notes for spring. Specifically, I provided you the bullet point notes. And I know you don't see bullet points on here, but you can definitely add bullet points or just a little dot and fill it in. And really, the focus with notes isn't copying word for word out of a textbook or any source for that matter. It's reading that information, in this case, the four seasons, and coming up with 4, 5, 6 different bullet points of information, and you putting that information into your own words. In other words, I don't want you to get in a habit of copying. I want you to get in a habit of asking yourself, what were the central or main ideas of this season? What were the women doing? What were the men doing? What were the children doing? Where were they living? What were they eating? Etc. And that will help you to come up with what to put down for each of the seasons. So let's continue in the summer, and just remember, at any time, you can pause this video and simply copy down or write down or add or delete the notes that you already have. Hopefully by now, you're finished with each of the seasons. So what was going on in the summer? For one, the Ojibwe's life was a lot easier. It's summer. Most of the time, our lives are easier in the summer compared to the winter. They moved to summer villages, typically near water so that they could fish. They held ceremonial feasts and danced. They played games like lacrosse. I know some of you participate in lacrosse as an extracurricular activity, and I had friends that played lacrosse as well. But when I looked in our textbook, our online textbook, I was like, whoa, look at what they were using to play lacrosse way back when. That is just crazy where we're at now with the equipment that we use today. All right, let's continue. Sorry, I got to go back to the front. So they were playing lacrosse. What else were they doing? The women were planting crops such as corn. They were collecting wild foods such as fruits. And the men traveled, traded, and even at times had battles with one another. If you can't read that, that's what that last word is. In the fall, harvesting crops and wild rice was extremely important. As they were moving into winter, they knew that they had the first three seasons, spring, summer, and fall, to really get ready for that harsh season known as winter. And so harvesting crops and wild rice, which grows naturally in northern Minnesota today primarily, was important in stockpiling their crops and their food sources. They left their village for a new destination. They collected and dried late berry growing fruits. The men hunted ducks and geese. The men and women caught fish. Hopefully, whoops, my bad. Hopefully you were able to watch that video that I recommended you to watch on ice fishing. And so, again, each of these three seasons, spring, summer, and fall, were building up to winter, which was the most challenging of this four seasons for the Ojibwe, as well as the Dakota for that matter. And so now that they have a stockpile of food, they have what they need. Now hopefully they can survive the harsh winters. And we know, just based on our winter, even though it's been mild for the most part, we did have a stretch of a week and a half or so where it was very, very, very cold outside. All right, life was hard. People died, unfortunately. Winter's a tough time. Remember, they don't have indoor plumbing. They don't have indoor heat. They have to find their own sources of heat. They have to find their own sources of clothing and shelter. They moved to wigwams and forest. I'm not sure why that's way down there, but it is what it is. And again, why would they move to the forest? To stay out of the harsh winds. Literally, the forest would protect them from the harsh, cold winter winds. The women cooked, made jackets, made moccasins, which are shoes. The older women wove fishing nets and hunting bags. The children did chores, used toboggans to go sledding in, and played a game called snow snakes. And the elders told stories. And lastly, as I stated before, the men were hunting. Even though it was cold out, even though the conditions were miserable, they still needed to hunt. They still needed to continue to provide food for their family. They didn't want to run out of food during this harsh season. And so now that we've covered the seasons for the Ojibwe, I want you to think about a few things when it comes to your Venn diagram. First and foremost, think about what similarities they had. Here's a similarity. Both the Dakota In the Ojibwe were woodland people, meaning they lived in the woods. Think about what we just talked about for the Ojibwe during the winter. They lived in villages, surrounded by relatives and neighbors. That's something that they had in common between the Ojibwe and Dakota. They both fished. They both hunted game. Think about the game or the animals they were hunting. They both harvested wild rice. They made maple sugar from maple sap during the spring. All of those are similarities. So within your Venn diagram, make sure you have that at a bare minimum and add to it. And hopefully by now you have a great list of similarities and differences. So how are the Ojibwe and the Dakota different? For one, they spoke their own language. They had their own customs. They had their own beliefs. There's three differences right off the top. The Dakota had teepees. However, the Ojibwe used wigwams. And lastly, another difference, their canoes. Remember, the Ojibwe used these birch bark lightweight canoes, whereas the Dakota initially were using those heavy, hollowed out log canoes. And that really created a lot of challenges. However, in time, the Ojibwe would teach the Dakota how to make canoes out of birch bark, which then made the life for the Dakota much easier. And think about you and your life and all the things you share with not only family but friends to make other people's lives easier. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me or your HOA teacher. Take care and have a great day.